The morning sun rose over Maple Grove Middle School as a gentle breeze carried the crisp scent of autumn leaves through the open windows. 16-year-old Kai Nakamura walked down the crowded corridor with his shoulders squared and his chin lifted, though his heart beat rapidly against his chest. His backpack felt heavy because it held not only books and notebooks, but also the ancient jade pendant his father had given him before sending him to live with his master. The jade pendant was small and smooth, carved in the shape of a coiled dragon wrapped around a crescent moon, yet it pulsed with comforting warmth at Kai's chest. Earlier that week, Kai had arrived from a distant province where Mount Lin's revered martial arts academy stood hidden in misty valleys. At the academy, Kai's father, Master Lin, was rumored to be the most skilled swordsman in the land, a man whose strikes were as swift as lightning. But here among these lockers and lockers of lockers, Kai was just another new student wearing the same uniform as everyone else. A group of 3 bullies, Derek, Javier, and Marcus, leaned against the lockers near the math classroom, whispering and pointing at Kai's unusual pendant. Derek cleared his throat and raised his voice so everyone could hear him chuckle and sneer at the jade dragon around Kai's neck. "Hey, newbie," Derek quipped, flicking at the dragon's head. "What's that old trinket supposed to do? Scare off dust bunnies?" Javier snickered and added, "Yeah, Grandpa's lucky charm won't make you tougher than us in the cafeteria fight tomorrow." Marcus raised an eyebrow and cracked his knuckles, making a quiet promise of the pain he planned to deliver. Kai swallowed hard, but he refused to let his fear show. He channeled his breathing into calm, just as he had practiced in the mountains. His eyes flicked between the 3 bullies, and he spoke in a steady voice. "It's not about luck, it's about respect and skill." Derek barked out a loud laugh that echoed down the hallway and drew curious gazes from passing students. "You think you're some kind of master already?" Derek jeered, jabbing his thumb at Kai's chest. "Where's your fancy sword then?" Kai reached inside his backpack and pulled out a thin wooden practice sword wrapped in cloth, laying it gently on top of his textbooks. The bullies exchanged amused glances, and Javier leaned forward to snatch the sword, but Kai's eyes narrowed in warning. "That may look simple, but it's the tool I've used for years to learn balance, precision, and patience," Kai said softly. Marcus scoffed and tossed the practice sword back into Kai's bag, saying, "Your balance won't help when we break your arm tomorrow." A tall teacher in a navy blazer stepped into view, and the bullies straightened, shoving Kai aside to avoid trouble. Kai bumped against the locker door and grabbed its handle to steady himself, his heart pounding yet his posture unchanged. The teacher offered Kai a small, polite nod, then turned his attention to the bullies and asked, "Is everything all right here, boys?" Derek mumbled an apology, while Marcus and Javier whispered excuses about crowded hallways and heavy backpacks. After the teacher walked away, the bullies regrouped, glaring at Kai as if he had personally challenged their kingdom. "You'd better watch your back, Master Lin's son," Derek muttered, a menacing grin curling his lips. Kai tightened his grip on the jade pendant and wondered if his father's training had prepared him for schoolyard fights. He thought of the early mornings on the training field, the sound of wooden swords tapping, the rhythm of disciplined footsteps. Inside the academy's courtyard, he once stood beneath cherry blossom trees, guided by his father's calm voice correcting his stance. Here, though, the ground was cold linoleum, and the traffic jam of students blocked his path to the science lab. Kai reminded himself that true strength was more than muscle and speed. It lay in honor, courage, and self-control. As he reached his locker, he carefully opened it and arranged his books in neat stacks, each title aligned by color. The bullies watched from a distance, their jaws clenched, waiting for Kai to make a mistake. But Kai simply closed his locker, slung his bag over one shoulder, and walked forward with silent confidence. He cleared his throat before turning back to the bullies and said, "I won't fight unless I must, but I won't run away either." Derek's eyes narrowed, and Javier cracked his knuckles again, the promise of tomorrow's challenge hanging in the air. Kai smiled faintly and took a step back, raising one hand in a peaceful gesture before continuing down the hall. He passed clusters of students chatting about weekend plans, test scores, and the upcoming school dance, none suspecting the tension behind his calm exterior. As Kai approached the science lab, the cool scent of antiseptic and the hum of fluorescent lights greeted him like a second home. He reached for the classroom door handle with steady fingers, unaware that the bullies' mocking laughter would soon meet the quiet force of a master's son. The next morning, Kai arrived at the school courtyard well before the first bell, the cool air stirring memories of the misty training fields where he learned discipline and focus. He tucked the jade dragon pendant beneath his shirt, feeling its gentle warmth and the weight of his heritage settle over him like a cloak of determination. As students streamed past him toward the cafeteria, Kai counted their footsteps like the measured rhythm of his father's sword strikes during practice. Through the open doorway, he saw Derek, Javier, and Marcus clustered around a long table, their laughter echoing off the linoleum floors like distant thunder. With steady breath, Kai approached the table and set his tray down beside theirs, the metal thud drawing all eyes in the bustling room. The bullies straightened at his arrival, their grins slipping into sneers as they registered his calm expression and unflinching gaze. Derek leaned forward, elbow on the table, and tapped his fingers against the wood with a deliberate, mocking tempo. Ready to lose, Master Lin's son? He taunted in a loud whisper, ensuring the entire table could hear his challenge. Kai remained silent as he unpacked his lunch, arranging an apple, a sandwich, and a small flask of tea with precise care. Javier rolled his eyes and cracked his knuckles, the sound sharp enough to puncture the chatter of nearby tables. "Don't take too long choosing your poison," Javier said, voice low but cruel. "We'll be waiting for you after lunch." Marcus leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms, his broad shoulders blocking the sunlight streaming through the window. Kai met his gaze calmly and replied, "I'm not here to fight without reason, but I will defend myself if pushed." A hush fell over the nearby students, dozens of eyes flicking between Kai's composed stance and the bullies' tense postures. Derek stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor, and jutted his chin at Kai in a challenge. 5 minutes after the last bell rings, Derek announced, voice ringing across the cafeteria, "Meet me by the gym doors if you dare." Kai nodded once, muted yet resolute, then rose calmly and picked up his tray, each movement deliberate and unhurried. He walked past the table, silent confidence carrying him forward as students parted before him like water around a stone. Outside, the autumn breeze had chilled the midday air, and amber leaves swirled around Kai's feet as he made his way to the science lab. Inside the lab, the cool scent of chemicals and the hum of microscopes greeted him like an old friend. He placed his tray on a windowsill, the sunlight catching the jade pendant through his shirt and sending a pale green glow across the room. While he ate, Kai thought back to his father's lessons on patience, how a single breath could calm a storm of anger. He remembered the promise he made at the academy, to use his skill only in defense of truth and justice. With that promise in mind, Kai finished his lunch and washed his tray, every motion smooth and unhurried. As the final bell rang, Kai closed his eyes for a moment and centered himself, recalling the balance drills his master taught him. Stepping into the corridor, he felt the tension in the air rise like static before a thunderstorm. He passed the gym doors where a small crowd had gathered, whispers of the coming fight floating like ghosts in the hallway. Derek stood beneath the clock, arms folded, while Javier warmed up with exaggerated stretches and Marcus cracked his knuckles again. Kai approached slowly, hands open at his sides, showing he carried no weapon but his wooden practice sword. The bullies laughed, but their eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt as they realized Kai's calm before the storm. Derek lunged first, fists swinging in wide arcs that Kai deftly sidestepped, his movements graceful and precise. Kai pivoted on one foot, his wooden sword flashing in a practiced arc that parried Javier's second punch. Marcus charged next, but Kai dropped into a low stance and swept Marcus's legs, sending him stumbling harmlessly to the floor. The students around them gasped as Kai's defense left the bullies off balance and struggling to rise. Instead of striking, Kai stepped back and lowered his guard, offering them a chance to stand without harm. Derek coughed, pushing himself upright, his face flushing as he realized Kai had defeated him without injuring a single person. Javier and Marcus rose more slowly, exchanging uneasy glances as their bravado crumbled in the face of Kai's mercy. The small crowd broke into applause, not for violence, but for Kai's quiet strength and his refusal to strike when unnecessary. Derek cleared his throat and muttered, "You win this time," before stalking off down the hallway with his friends. Kai watched them leave, the jade dragon warm against his chest, knowing he had honored his father's teachings and earned respect without raising his sword in anger. After the fight in the hallway ended without harm, Kai slipped back into the classroom as the door closed behind him with a soft click. His classmates glanced up from their desks, their eyes bright with surprise and curiosity as they watched him step into the room. Mrs. Harper paused mid-sentence at the whiteboard and offered Kai a small, proud smile before turning back to finish her explanation. Kai moved to his seat near the window and carefully placed his practice sword beside his notebook, its smooth-wood surface catching a sliver of sunlight. Across the room, Lily whispered something to Marcus Lee, and both of them turned to give Kai encouraging nods and thumbs-up gestures. Kai's heart warmed at their support, and he took a slow breath to ease the lingering tension in his shoulders. As Mrs. Harper resumed her lesson on chemical reactions, Kai opened his notebook and copied down her neat diagrams with careful strokes. He thought about how a simple change in temperature could turn a clear liquid into bubbling foam, just like how small choices could change the course of a day. When the bell rang for the end of class, the students gathered their bags and lined up at the door in an orderly fashion. Kai lingered for a moment to thank Mrs. Harper for her lesson and to ask a quick question about the science experiment they would perform tomorrow. The teacher's eyes lit up as she explained the details of measuring pH levels and encouraged Kai to share his thoughts during the lab. Outside, the courtyard was alive with students chatting and tossing backpacks onto benches. Kai scanned the sea of faces until he spotted Lily waving him over near the old oak tree at the edge of the lawn. She greeted him with a bright smile, and Marcus Lee joined them, balancing a stack of library books in his arms. "We found more research for our project," Lily said excitedly, handing Kai a thick volume on rainforest ecosystems. Kai accepted the book with gratitude and felt the weight of knowledge resting in his hands like a promise of discovery. Marcus Lee pointed to a passage about how rainforest plants produce oxygen and protect the soil from erosion during heavy rains. Kai read the words aloud in a clear voice, explaining how root systems intertwine beneath the ground like the woven threads of a strong tapestry. As they discussed ideas, the bullies, Derek, Javier, and Marcus, appeared at the far end of the courtyard, their faces set in cold determination. The three of them strode toward Kai and his friends, their footsteps heavy enough to rattle loose pebbles on the pavement. Derek folded his arms and said in a low voice that carried across the grass, "Thought you could hide behind books, wizard boy?" Kai met Derek's gaze calmly and replied, "Knowledge is my shield. Understanding is my sword." Javier sneered and told Kai to drop the books if he wanted a fair fight, his words like pebbles thrown at a locked door. Lily and Marcus Lee stood behind Kai, their faces firm with silent support, showing they would stand by him no matter what. Kai set the heavy book down gently on a bench and adjusted his stance, hands open to show he carried no weapon except his wooden sword. The bullies exchanged uneasy glances, surprised that Kai had not backed down or reached for a metal blade. Suddenly, a group of older students stepped onto the courtyard steps, having heard about the fight earlier. Among them was Jake, the captain of the soccer team, who raised an eyebrow and asked, "Are you really going to start this again?" Kai shook his head and said, "I would rather solve conflicts with words and skill, not fists and fear." Derek's jaw tightened as he prepared to lunge forward, but halted at Jake's steady gaze in the gathering crowd. Jill, a student council member, called out, "This is school, not an arena. Take it somewhere else or stop it entirely." Under the watchful eyes of dozens of students and teachers now filing out of classrooms, the bullies hesitated. Javier kicked at a fallen leaf, sending it skittering across the stone path, his anger flickering like a candle in the wind. Marcus's knuckles went white as he unclenched his fists, realizing the fight would not give him the respect he wanted. Derek looked at Kai's calm expression and the supportive faces around him, then sighed and muttered, "Fine, we're done." With that, the three bullies turned and stalked away, their steps heavy but no longer threatening. Kai watched them leave and felt a quiet relief settle in his chest as the courtyard returned to normal chatter. Lily smiled and said, "That was amazing. You stood your ground without hurting anyone." Kai shook his head and replied, "True strength comes from the courage to be kind and the wisdom to know when to fight." Together, Kai, Lily, and Marcus Lee collected their books and walked back toward the school building, ready to face the next challenge with unity and honor. Later that afternoon, Kai heard a soft echo of drums and voices coming from the gym hallway. He tucked his practice sword behind his back and followed the sound toward the open double doors. Inside, students sat in neat rows of folding chairs, chatter filling the air with excitement. Bright banners hung from the ceiling, each marked with a golden dragon coiled around a staff. The principal tapped the microphone and called the room to silence with a firm but friendly voice. "Students and teachers, please welcome Master Lin of the Mountain Academy," he announced. A hush fell over the crowd as a tall figure stepped into the center of the polished wood floor. Master Lin's robe carried faint patterns of sweeping waves and mountain peaks that caught the light. The bullies, Derek, Javier, and Marcus, sat near the back and stared in surprise at the famous man. They recognized him from the stories whispered in the hallways and from the woodblock prints in the art room. Kai felt as though the air around him had grown still and heavy with respect and wonder. Master Lin raised his staff gently above his head and then brought it down in a controlled stance. Each motion was smooth and precise, like a wave rolling onto the shore with perfect rhythm. Some students gasped as the staff seemed to shimmer in Master Lin's hands, though it was plain wood. A clear tone rang from the staff striking the floor, echoing like a gong in a distant temple. Master Lin smiled before motioning Kai to step forward with his wooden practice sword. Kai's legs trembled with excitement and pride as he stepped into the center of the circle. The crowd leaned forward in their seats, eager to see the master and the student perform together. Master Lin nodded to Kai and lowered his staff in a sign of mutual respect and trust. Kai raised his wooden sword and met his father's calm gaze with steady eyes. Then, as if by instinct, they moved in perfect harmony with each other's steps and stances. The beat of drums from hidden speakers matched the flow of their synchronized movements. Spin followed spin, sweep followed block, each strike landing with a gentle tap on the staff. Derek's jaw dropped and Javier clutched his arm, as if he feared it might vanish in surprise. Marcus shook his head to clear it, unable to believe the power in such small, precise motions. When the demonstration ended, Master Lin lowered his staff and Kai rested his sword at his side. The gym erupted in applause that sounded like rain on a tin roof, loud and full of wonder. Master Lin bowed deeply to the students, then to Kai, who bowed in return. The principal stepped forward again and thanked them for the inspiring display of discipline. Derek, Javier, and Marcus rose to their feet, slowly clapping their hands in awkward respect. Kai looked at them and nodded, offering forgiveness and peace through a simple gesture. Master Lin placed a firm hand on Kai's shoulder and whispered, "You have done well, my son." Kai felt the warmth of his father's pride flow through his body like a gentle fire. The students rushed toward Kai and Master Lin, eager to ask questions and shake their hands. Lily and Marcus Lee joined them, beaming with excitement and a new understanding of Kai's strength. Even teachers came forward, some wiping tears of joy as they praised the pair for their skill. Derek approached Kai last, his eyes lowered but his tone sincere as he said, "I'm sorry." Kai smiled and replied, "Thank you. I hope we can all learn together now, in respect." Master Lin nodded and spoke to the crowd. True power is in the heart, not in fear or force. That day, everyone understood that Kai was not just a new student, but the son of a great master. The sun peeked through the classroom windows as Kai took his seat at the front row, the jade dragon pendant tucked safely inside his shirt. Students chatted quietly as Mrs. Harper placed test papers on each desk and announced they would share their experiences. Derek, Javier, and Marcus sat together but avoided eye contact with Kai, their faces calm but thoughtful. Kai watched them for a moment before turning his attention to the test questions on the board. The first question asked students to describe a time they showed courage, and Kai felt a surge of confidence as his classmates began writing. Derek tapped his pencil nervously, glancing up at Kai's calm posture before writing his own answer. Javier bit his lip and Marcus chewed on the end of his pen, both recalling events from the previous day. Kai wrote about how he defended himself with skill and mercy, focusing on respect for his opponents rather than anger. When time was up, Mrs. Harper collected the papers and said she would read a few aloud. Kai felt dozens of eyes on him as the teacher opened the first paper. Mrs. Harper cleared her throat and read Derek's words. "I learned that true strength comes from standing up for what is right." The class fell silent at the sincerity in Derek's voice as he described how Kai's actions made him reflect. Next, the teacher read Javier's paper, which spoke of the value of respecting others and seeking understanding before conflict. Marcus's paper came last, and his words praised Kai's skill and kindness, admitting he regretted his own behavior. A soft murmur of approval rose from the students as they realized how much they had grown in one day. Mrs. Harper smiled and said, "I am proud of each of you for showing real courage and kindness." After class, the three former bullies approached Kai at his desk, each holding out a folded piece of paper. Kai accepted Derek's paper and unfolded it to read an invitation to train together after school. Javier and Marcus also handed him similar notes, each written with shaky but earnest handwriting. Kai looked at them and nodded, saying, "I would be honored to teach you what I have learned." Derek's face lit up in relief, and he asked Kai to meet them at the courtyard after the last bell. Lily and Marcus Lee watched from the doorway, smiling at the sudden friendship that bloomed before their eyes. At the end of the day, the courtyard lay empty as students rushed to buses and lunch tables. Kai arrived carrying his wooden practice sword and water flask, finding the three waiting near the oak tree. Derek bowed respectfully, and Javier followed suit, a polite gesture that went against every memory of yesterday. Marcus Lee joined them, offering tips on footwork he had picked up from watching Kai and Master Lin. Kai began the session with simple balance drills, guiding Derek through a slow sequence of steps. Javier practiced precise strikes on a rolled-up mat while Kai demonstrated how to hold the sword lightly. Marcus Lee held pads from Marcus to block strikes, noting how small adjustments made a big difference. Derek stumbled at first, his muscles unfamiliar with the careful control Kai required. Javier grew frustrated, but Kai reminded him that patience was key to mastering any new skill. Marcus Lee encouraged Marcus, showing him how to keep his center of gravity steady during each move. As the sun dipped lower, the four of them moved through patterns of blocks and parries under the oak's shade. Kai praised each of them when they executed a form correctly, his kind words boosting their confidence. When Master Lin's soft flute-like chant drifted through the trees, Kai paused and bowed. The afternoon breeze carried the gentle notes, marking the end of their training session. Derek, Javier, and Marcus walked Kai back to the school entrance, each thanking him sincerely. Kai placed his hand over his heart and said, "This is only the beginning of our journey together." As the final bell rang, they parted ways with bright smiles and a shared sense of purpose. Kai watched his new friends merge into the stream of students, knowing bonds forged through respect would last a lifetime. On the crisp morning when orange and red leaves twirled through the courtyard, the school posted a hand-painted notice announcing that the annual Autumn Festival would include a student talent showcase in the gym and on the outdoor stage. Kai stood beneath the notice, reading each word and feeling his chest tighten with excitement at the thought of sharing the skilled, precise martial arts he had learned at his father's ancient academy, hidden high in the misty mountains. When Mrs. Harper learned Kai's talent, she offered him a proud, encouraging smile before suggesting that he gather his friends for a special demonstration of the martial arts forms he practiced daily, making sure to explain that the festival was a chance to teach others about discipline, respect, and inner strength. Lily and Marcus Lee gathered around Kai's locker after class, their voices bubbling with excitement and ideas for music, costumes, and stage design to make the demonstration feel like a real festival celebration rather than a simple fight show. To everyone's surprise, Derek, Javier, and Marcus volunteered to handle chairs, set up folding tables, arrange decorations, and clear space for the performance, showing clearly that they wanted to help instead of harm. Kai gave a shy but grateful smile, his thanks shining through his quiet voice as he told them how much their support and friendship meant to him on this important day. During the lunch breaks that week, the six friends met beside the oak tree beneath its broad branches, sitting in a tight circle as Kai planned each movement in detail and described the story he wanted to tell through his forms. They agreed on a simple but meaningful routine that started with total stillness to represent calm minds, moved into precise, swift strikes to show courage, and ended with deep bows for friendship, mutual respect, and unity. Kai taught Derek, Javier, and Marcus the footwork drills he had practiced since early childhood, carefully guiding their steps as they shuffled across the pavement and shaping their wrists with gentle, patient hands. At the same time, Lily arranged a playlist of soft drum beats, chimes, and wind sounds to play during the flowing movements, carefully timing each beat to match the moments when wooden swords would sweep gracefully through the air. Marcus Lee sketched a banner covered in green dragon scales and a golden crescent, then painted it in bright colors so it could hang behind the performers as a bold symbol of their shared heritage and hope for the future. Over and over, the three former bullies practiced balance and posture under Kai's calm guidance, their mistakes met with encouraging words and gentle corrections until their confidence and pride grew steadily each day. Javier wrote out a simple script to explain each section of the form to the audience, practicing his words so his voice would sound steady and clear instead of hesitant or unsure in front of the crowd. Meanwhile, Marcus arranged the wooden swords and staffs on the gym floor in neat rows, making sure each weapon rested at the correct angle and was polished to catch the light. Derek studied the lighting controls and microphone settings with deep concentration, labeling each cue carefully to mark exactly when the light should dim, the music swell, and the sound fade away. As they rehearsed inside the gym after school, small groups of curious students peeked around the doors to watch the unusual display of cooperation, friendship, and skill unfolding before their eyes. Some whispered to one another, wondering why the three boys who used to tease Kai were now working so closely with him, their surprise and admiration shining in their eyes. Kai reminded everyone that respect, honor, and kindness were the most important lessons he had learned at the Mountain Academy, and that his friend had chosen to share these lessons by helping him. On the day of the festival, the gym was bright with colorful lanterns and banners, and the courtyard smelled of popcorn, cider, and crisp autumn air as families and friends gathered in happy crowds. Folding chairs filled with students, parents, and teachers lined up in neat rows facing the stage where homemade colorful banners and ribbons waved in the gentle breeze. When the announcer's voice called Kai's group to the front, the chatter in the gym quieted to a respectful hush as all eyes turned to the small but determined circle of performers. Kai took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the crowd's attention, the faint scent of lantern oil, and the steady beat of the drum music starting softly behind the stage curtain. The first movements were slow and graceful, as each participant stepped forward with careful balance and controlled breathing, their wooden swords raised like pens writing calm letters in the air. Then the music shifted to a faster rhythm, and all six moved together with sharp, precise strikes, their motions echoing water crashing against rocks. Lily's drum beats and chime sounds blended perfectly with the dancers' blocks and thrusts, creating a sense of harmony that made the routine feel alive and powerful. At exactly the right moments, Derek dimmed the lights to focus on Kai's sword, which caught the spotlight and seemed to glow softly as it moved through each arc. Javier's clear voice explained to the audience the meaning of each form, how the first stance symbolized peace, the second showed courage, and the third honored unity. Marcus Lee then stepped forward at the end to unfurl the painted banner, revealing the dragon coiled around the moon and reminding everyone that strength comes from unity and understanding. The crowd gasped in wonder when they saw the banner's bright colors and the dancers' synchronized movements, then burst into enthusiastic applause that filled the entire gym with sound. When Kai and his friends held their final pose, they stood side by side with raised swords over bowed heads, their faces glowing with pride at a performance well done in front of their peers. Mrs. Harper's eyes shone with tears as she watched fear turn into respect, remembering how far Kai and his friend had come in so short a time. The principal stepped forward to hand out medals to each performer, praising their courage, teamwork, and the powerful message they shared. Derek, Javier, and Marcus accepted their medals, their usual swagger replaced by humble smiles as they bowed to Kai and the audience. Just then, Master Lin stepped through the gym doors, his robe billowing as he approached the stage with pride shining in his calm eyes. He placed his hand on Kai's shoulder and spoke so the silent gym could hear, congratulating them on a demonstration that honored tradition and friendship. The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation, their cheers echoing like thunder as they celebrated skill and kindness together. Kai looked out over the crowd and saw his father standing tall among the parents and teachers, his calm smile shining brighter than any stage light. In that moment, Kai realized that respect and understanding could turn enemies into allies with simple acts of kindness. As the festival ended and the lights dimmed, the six friends walked off the stage raising their medals. They knew they had not only won hearts but also taught everyone the lesson carried by Kai's Jade Dragon pendant, that true strength comes from honor shared with others. The next morning, the sun rose as students hurried into Maple Grove Middle School, excitedly talking about Saturday's festival and the amazing martial arts demonstration they had seen. Kai walked down a hallway and heard whispers of praise as former bullies high-fived classmates and pointed to the Jade Dragon pendant glowing beneath his shirt. Lily met Kai at his locker, holding a stack of sign-up sheets for the new martial arts club he would lead, a club open to every student who wanted to learn. Marcus Lee and the three friends, Derek, Javier, and Marcus, handed out pens and clipboards, inviting students to join and promising to share the basic moves Kai had taught them. Soon, a long line formed outside room 12, where Kai had arranged practice mats and wooden swords neatly on tables for the first club meeting. Mrs. Harper passed by and smiled, whispering, "I'm so proud of you," before walking onto her classroom with admiration shining in her eyes. By midday, more than 30 students had signed up, eager to learn balance drills, footwork patterns, and gentle sparring techniques that Kai would teach. After lunch, Kai gathered everyone on the gym floor and demonstrated the first sequence of movements, explaining each step clearly so everyone could follow. The group formed two lines, their wooden swords held at shoulder height as they focused on Kai's slow, steady instructions. As they moved, the room filled with the soft tap of wood on wood and the quiet shush of breathing in time with each block and sweep. Derek and Javier stood at the front, calling out tips about weight distribution, knee bends, and how to hold the sword lightly yet firmly. Marcus held a stopwatch, timing each practice so students could start slowly and then increase speed as their confidence grew. Lily passed out water bottles and towels, making sure everyone stayed comfortable under the warm afternoon sun shining through the windows. Students helped each other adjust grips and foot positions, their laughter and friendly chatter turning practice into a fun team activity. Kai walked between the lines, gently correcting stances and praising each student's effort, reminding them that progress comes through patient practice. When the final bell rang, tired but happy faces looked up at Kai and asked if they could meet again tomorrow to learn the next form. Kai smiled and nodded, promising to introduce gentle grappling moves and new footwork patterns in the next session. As students packed up, they thanked Kai, Lily, Derek, Javier, and Marcus for being kind teachers and inspiring leaders instead of bullies or distant masters. Kai tucked his practice sword into his backpack and stepped outside into the bright afternoon, feeling the breeze carry word of the new club across the campus. Near the old oak tree, Master Lin waited with his staff and a warm smile, having come early to observe his son's first day as a teacher. Kai bowed respectfully, and Master Lin placed a hand on his shoulder, saying, "Your heart is as strong as your skill, and your kindness will guide you well." Master Lin watched as Lily and their friends waved to Kai, their faces filled with trust and excitement for the lessons ahead. Together, Kai and his father walked down the tree-lined path back toward the academy gates, talking about ideas for future after-school events. Master Lin suggested hosting a parent demonstration night so families could see their children's new skills and learn about the values behind each form. Kai agreed with bright eyes, imagining parents cheering as their children balanced on one foot or performed synchronized sword swings. That evening, Kai returned to a small cabin near the academy, where the scent of incense and bamboo mats greeted him at the door. Over dinner, Kai shared stories of the day's success and the smiling faces of students who had never touched a sword but now moved with confidence. Master Lin listened and offered advice on keeping the club safe and welcoming, reminding Kai that respect for one another was the most important rule. They spoke late into the night about goals for the club, including teaching basic meditation drills to strengthen both body and mind before each practice. Kai drifted to sleep with dreams of students bowing respectfully, wooden swords tapping in unison, and the quiet pride he felt in his new role. The next morning would bring fresh challenges and new faces, but Kai knew he was ready to guide others with patience and honor. He closed his eyes for a moment and whispered a silent thanks to the jade dragon pendant that reminded him always to stay humble and brave. School would be different now, not just a place of tests and classes, but community where kindness, courage, and skill could grow together. As he laced up his shoes the next day, Kai felt a gentle excitement, imagining the faces of students eager to learn from him. He walked through the front doors and saw a poster advertising tomorrow's club meeting, decorated with drawings of dragons and moons. Students who had never spoken to him before waved and smiled, their new respect shining in their eyes as they called out encouragement. Kai nodded and returned each greeting, feeling the warm buzz of friendship spread through the hallways like sunlight. At his locker, he found a small hand-drawn card from Derek, Javier, and Marcus Lee, thanking him for believing in them and helping them grow. Kai placed the card next to his school ID and took a deep breath, ready to share his skills and values with anyone willing to learn. And so, with the first seeds of respect and friendship planted in many hearts, Kai prepared to lead his classmates toward new adventures and lessons yet to come. Weeks passed as the martial arts club grew, with eager students joining each day after school beneath the old oak tree. Kai greeted each new member, teaching them balance drills and guiding their first tentative sword holds with gentle encouragement. Lily and Marcus Lee took charge of organizing practice schedules, ensuring everyone had a partner and a chance to learn. Derek, Javier, and Marcus assisted students with footwork patterns, their confidence growing as they moved from bullies to mentors. The gym transformed into a bustling dojo, with wooden swords tapping softly and students moving in unison across blue mats. Mrs. Harper peeked through the doorway each afternoon, proud to see a classroom once divided now united in purpose. Even teachers stopped by to ask Kai for permission to watch the training, impressed by the calm focus and respect they observed. One day, Principal Adams surprised Kai and the club by announcing a special invitation to perform at the school board meeting. Excitement buzzed through the club as students practiced extra forms to showcase discipline, respect, and unity at the meeting. Kai created a graceful opening bow sequence, explaining to his team that every movement should carry meaning and heart. Lily crafted a simple script to introduce each section, highlighting how martial arts taught life lessons beyond just fighting. Marcus Lee painted posters with phrases like strength through unity and hung them along the gym walls as motivation. Derek rehearsed a demonstration of footwork drills, his movements now precise and confident instead of clumsy and tense. Javier refined a short kata that symbolized perseverance, focusing his breath and steps until they became smooth and steady. Marcus polished the wooden swords until they gleamed, each weapon treated with care as a symbol of trust. On the evening of the school board meeting, the auditorium filled with parents, teachers, and board members awaiting the performance. The lights dimmed and soft drum beats echoed as Kai and his club entered in neat lines, wearing simple uniforms. Each member bowed together, their wooden swords lifted in salute to respect tradition and honor each other. Kai led the opening sequence, his child heart steady as he guided the group through synchronized strikes. Lily's voice then introduced the first form, explaining how balance begins with stillness and listening to one's own breath. The club moved through the forms with fluid grace, their wooden swords tapping the floor in harmony. The audience watched in silence, the soft sound of collective focus creating its own kind of music. When the final form ended, the group stood in a circle, swords lowered and heads bowed in mutual respect. A moment of stillness hung before the auditorium erupted in applause, the sound warm and filled with admiration. Principal Adams joined the stage to praise the young martial artists, noting their teamwork and character growth. A board member remarked, "I have never seen students transform so quickly from fear to friendship." Parents beamed with pride as they saw their children perform, some wiping away happy tears at the display of unity. After the meeting, dozens of students lined up to sign up for the next semester's club, eager to learn from Kai's teachings. Derek, Javier, and Marcus greeted the new recruits with welcoming smiles, passing on the same encouragement they once received. As the crowd dispersed, Kai felt Master Lin's words echo in his mind. Kindness and skill together create true power. Later that night, Kai sat by the lantern light in his cabin and wrote in his journal about how far he had come. He wrote about the fear he once felt facing bullies, and the pride in helping them become friends and allies. Kai reflected on the jade dragon pendant at his chest, grateful for its silent reminder of respect and tradition. He looked forward to new adventures with his martial arts club, imagining students practicing forms under the rising sun. Word of their success spread beyond Maple Grove Middle School, and nearby schools asked to visit and observe training. Kai and his friends planned weekend workshops, eager to share their lessons of honor, unity, and self-control. As autumn turned to winter, the martial arts club continued to flourish, its members carrying kindness out into the school. On the final day before winter break, Kai led a special meditation session under the oak tree, guiding everyone's breath and peace. Students closed their eyes and found calm amid the busy world, understanding that inner harmony was the greatest victory. With smiles on every face and the sound of quiet harmony lingering, Kai knew that the bullies had truly learned from the son of a great master.